You know what's strange about the world we live in? The moment a man signs those divorce papers, everyone assumes he'll bounce back like it's nothing. Grab a drink, hit the gym, download a dating app, and suddenly he's free. That's the story people tell. But if you've ever been through it, or watched a man you care about try to rebuild from that wreckage, you already know the truth. It's not freedom, it's fallout. And most of it happens behind closed doors, where no one's watching. Because while the world tells men to move on, something inside them quietly breaks. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in slow motion, like a building collapsing from the inside out. It's a private war waged in silence while everyone else keeps telling him to man up. The problem isn't just that the pain is invisible. It's that men are conditioned to pretend it doesn't exist. Society expects them to carry the full weight of heartbreak with a straight face. But here's the truth most people never say out loud. That expectation is killing them. Let me give you a number that still makes psychologists lose sleep. Divorced men are up to 9 times more likely to die by suicide than divorced women. 9 times. That's not a gap, it's a canyon. Imagine if a medical treatment harmed one gender 9 times more than the other. It would be a national emergency. But because it's emotional pain, male pain, we ignore it. That statistic alone should tell you that the myth of the unbothered man isn't just false, it's deadly. The reality is far darker. When a marriage ends, men often face their first true encounter with clinical depression. Not sadness, not heartbreak, real depression. For years, that structure of daily life, work, dinner, family, routine, held him together like scaffolding around a building. When that scaffolding gets ripped away, the structure collapses. One study from Canada found that newly divorced men were 6 times more likely to develop major depression than their still married peers. 6 times. That's not coincidence, that's cause and effect. And yet most men don't realize what's happening until the storm hits. They wake up one morning and feel like a stranger in their own life. Work doesn't feel meaningful. The house is too quiet. The silence that used to feel peaceful now feels suffocating. That's the first wave, the psychological void left behind when your identity, your routine, and your purpose vanish overnight. But here's something crucial most men don't understand. This stage doesn't last forever. The data shows that men do recover, typically within 4 years, but there's a catch, only if they reconnect. Healing isn't automatic. It's not time that does the work, it's action. Psychologist Viktor Frankl once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Divorce is exactly that challenge. So if you're in this storm, here's a simple challenge. One small act of defiance against the isolation that's trying to swallow you whole. Pick up your phone, text one friend, not a meme, not small talk. Ask something real and simple. Hey, got 10 minutes to catch up this week? It doesn't matter if they say yes or no. What matters is that you reach out, because that message, that single action, tells your brain you're not completely alone. It's like throwing a rope across a canyon. That first small thread becomes the foundation for your safety net. And if you're thinking, I don't have anyone to text, that's fine too. Start rebuilding. Join a running club, a workshop, a men's group, an online class, any environment that gives your week a predictable rhythm. Your nervous system doesn't need perfection, it needs pattern. Predictability tells your body you're safe, that life still has shape, that connection still exists. Which brings us to the next hidden truth, loneliness. Because the quiet that follows divorce isn't just emotional, it's biological. Research shows that chronic loneliness can be as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15. That means that the empty apartment, the silent dinners, the weekends without calls, they don't just hurt, they literally shorten your lifespan. During marriage, men unconsciously depend on those micro-interactions that keep their emotional circuitry regulated. The small talk, the shared glances, the daily "did you eat yet" moments. Without them, the brain starts firing danger signals non-stop. Cortisol rises, sleep fragments, the immune system weakens. It's like living under constant low-level threat. That's why loneliness feels physically heavy. It's not just in your head, it's in your bloodstream. And men, more than women, are conditioned to tough it out instead of reaching out. But toughness isn't endurance, it's denial. The fix isn't isolation, it's intentional connection. Schedule 2 social events a week and treat them like doctor appointments, non-negotiable. Monday, basketball. Thursday, poker. Saturday, gym meetup. Whatever it is, make it ritual. Because ritual builds safety, safety builds trust, and trust rebuilds men. Every connection, no matter how small, acts like emotional oxygen. It clears the fog, lowers the stress hormones, and reminds your nervous system that you're still part of something. You're not a ghost drifting through your own life. You're human, and humans heal through connection. But here's the deeper truth most never face. Loneliness and depression are only symptoms. The real collapse happens beneath them, the loss of identity itself. Because once the role, the family, and the purpose are gone, what's left? Who is the man without the structure that once defined him? That's the question we're about to confront next. For most men, the biggest wound after divorce isn't financial, it's existential. Everyone talks about splitting assets, dividing property, negotiating alimony, but nobody talks about how it feels to lose yourself. Because when the papers are signed, what actually dies isn't the marriage, it's the identity that came with it. The husband, the provider, the protector. Those weren't just roles, they were anchors. And when those anchors are cut, the man doesn't drift, he sinks. Psychologists call this role collapse. It's not just sadness or stress, it's an identity implosion. The same brain regions that activate during grief light up when a man loses these defining roles. That's why it feels like mourning a death, because in many ways, it is. A version of you has died. The version that once knew where he fit in the world. Suddenly, everything feels unrecognizable. The house, the mirror, even your own name. I once spoke to a client, a 42-year-old father of 2, who described it perfectly. He said, "It's like walking through my own life as a visitor. Same furniture, same smells, but it's not mine anymore." He wasn't talking about the house. He was talking about his place in it. Divorce doesn't just rearrange your living situation, it rearranges your sense of being. But here's where most men go wrong. They try to rebuild by chasing a replacement, new partner, new job, new house, anything to fill the silence. But what they're really avoiding is the question underneath, who am I now? It's a terrifying question because it has no immediate answer, but the truth is, the man you were isn't gone. He's buried beneath years of responsibility, compromise, and self-sacrifice. Divorce, as brutal as it feels, is ours to an excavation. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is that moment. The collapse is forcing you to meet the parts of yourself you buried to survive marriage, the playful side, the curious side, the reckless dreamer who used to stay up until 2 a.m. building something just because he wanted to. Those aren't childish fragments, they're your original architecture. So here's the reframe. Stop asking, who am I now? And start asking, what parts of me got silenced? Were you a musician once? A writer? Did you love hiking, painting, fixing things, building? Pick one forgotten thread and pull it. Dust off that guitar. Sign up for that weekend trail run. Open that sketchbook. This isn't about becoming the man you used to be. It's about rediscovering the man who was waiting underneath all along. You don't need to reinvent your life overnight. You just need one honest connection to something that feels like you. Because when you start to act like yourself again, your brain builds a new narrative to follow. That's how identity heals. Not through time, but through expression. But the journey doesn't stop there. Because even once you begin to rebuild, there's another force waiting in the dark: grief. And men, unlike women, rarely allow themselves to grieve properly. Society has trained them to grieve in silence, to hold back the wave until it either fades or explodes. But it never really fades, it just hides. MRI studies show that when men recall an ex-partner, the brain's threat centers activate, not the emotional ones. In simple terms, the brain interprets heartbreak as danger. So instead of crying, men armor up, they suppress, they say, "I'm fine." They drown it in work, distractions, or stoicism. But emotions don't disappear. They store. They sit like static in the nervous system until something, months or years later, reawakens them. That's why so many men say the pain hit them long after the divorce was over. The grief is delayed because the system never got permission to feel it. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The longer you hold it, the harder it hits when it bursts. So here's a practical fix. Not therapy jargon, not abstract advice, just a tool that works. Every night for the next week, give yourself 15 minutes. Sit alone somewhere quiet. Put on one song that matches your mood. Maybe it's sad, angry, nostalgic, whatever feels true, and feel it. Don't analyze, don't fix, don't resist. Let the wave hit. And when the song ends, do one physical thing. Stand up, stretch, shake your arms, take a deep exhale. You're teaching your body that it's safe to feel and safe to recover. That small ritual tells your nervous system that pain isn't permanent. It's just energy passing through. Over time, your body learns that emotions aren't threats. They're signals, signals that you're alive. And here's the haunting truth. Most men never get this far. They push down their grief, rebuild too quickly, and convince themselves they've healed, when in reality, they've only delayed the crash. Because sometimes, the danger doesn't hit when things are falling apart. It hits when they finally look like they're getting better. That's the most deceptive stage of all. Here's what most people don't understand about recovery. The danger doesn't always come when everything is burning down. Sometimes, it comes after the fire's been put out, when the house looks rebuilt from the outside, but the foundation is still cracked beneath. That's the silent stage where many men lose themselves completely. Because once the chaos quiets down, everyone assumes you're fine. The calls stop, the sympathy fades, the world moves on. But inside, the mind begins to whisper the most dangerous lie of all. Maybe everyone would be better off without me. Statistically, this is the deadliest window. Research shows that suicide risk actually peaks after things start appearing stable, not during the immediate aftermath of divorce, but months later when the noise has died down. Why? Because in those early months, men are in survival mode. Adrenaline keeps them moving. Friends check in. People notice. But once stability returns, so does the shame. The mask goes back on. You start performing strength instead of feeling it, and that's when the walls close in. If you ever find yourself thinking, even for a second, that your absence might make life easier for someone else, stop treating that thought like a passing mood. Treat it like a fire alarm. That's your brain under siege. It's lying to you. As clinical psychologist Dr. Edwin Schneidman once wrote, suicide is not a desire for death, but a desire to end pain. The pain isn't truth, it's distortion. Get a second opinion from someone trained to see through that distortion. Call 988 in the US, Samaritans in the UK, or any local crisis line. The strongest thing a man can do in that moment isn't to endure, it's to interrupt the spiral. You wouldn't walk on a broken leg and call it strength. This is no different. Now, let's talk about the more common but quieter version of the same escape: substances. When men can't shut off the noise inside, they reach for something that does it for them. Alcohol is the most seductive because it works, at first. That first drink dulls the anxiety, slows the racing thoughts, blurs the edges. It feels like relief. That's the trap. Alcohol mimics GABA, the brain's main calm-down neurotransmitter. You feel balanced for a few hours, but as soon as it wears off, the brain overcorrects, spiking glutamate and cortisol. Anxiety comes back stronger, the lows hit deeper, and the body begins to depend on the next drink to feel normal again. Studies show that heavy drinking increases by around 4% among men in the 2 years following divorce, and what begins as comfort becomes anesthesia. The problem is, anesthesia works by numbing, not healing. Every time you numb pain, you also numb joy, motivation, curiosity, the very circuits that make life worth rebuilding. You end up in a smaller emotional world. So here's a simple substitution that actually rewires the brain in the opposite direction. Before you pour that drink, go for a 20-minute walk, especially at sunset. The rhythm of walking synchronizes your breathing and heartbeat, lowers cortisol, and activates the same reward circuits. Alcohol hijacks, but without the crash. You'll come back calmer, clearer, slightly more grounded. That's not placebo, that's neurochemistry. Do it 5 nights in a row and you'll start noticing your craving shift from escape to release. It's not about being perfect, it's about breaking the loop. But even for men who manage to stay sober, there's another source of pain that hits just as deep, and far fewer people talk about it: the loss of daily fatherhood. Because for most dads, the hardest part of divorce isn't signing papers. It's closing the door on a room that used to echo with their child's laughter. The absence is deafening. Studies using brain imaging show that when fathers who've lost daily contact with their kids see photos of them, the same brain regions light up as those of mothers hearing their newborn cry. That's biology screaming for connection. Yet the system often treats fathers as visitors in their own children's lives. Every missed bedtime, every canceled weekend, every unread text cuts into the psyche like a blade. It's not just emotional, it's primal. Anthropologist Helen Fisher once described it as a neural replay of separation trauma. When a man loses proximity to his children, it triggers the same ancient panic response humans evolved to prevent abandonment. That's why so many fathers spiral into guilt and self-blame, even when they did nothing wrong. So if you're a dad caught in that pain, remember this. Love is built through consistency, not geography. You can't control court orders, but you can control presence, micro-presence. A text every morning, thinking of you, hope school's good, a funny meme at night, a quick selfie, a 2-minute voice note before bed. You may think they don't notice, but those small signals tell their subconscious the bond is still alive, and it tells your own nervous system the same thing. Predictable micro-contact heals the attachment wound on both sides. The truth is, every father who stays connected, even imperfectly, plants a seed of resilience in his children's minds. You're showing them what love looks like after loss, consistent, unconditional, quietly enduring. And maybe that's the most heroic thing a man can do. But for most, this battle doesn't end with the heart. Because once the emotional fires calm, another storm begins. The one that hits your finances, your pride, and your sense of power. That's where we go next. When the emotional dust finally settles, most men assume the worst is behind them. But what comes next is a quieter, more insidious pain, the kind that gnaws at a man's sense of worth. Because divorce doesn't just cost love or family. It often demolishes financial stability and status, two pillars many men unknowingly build their identity upon. Let's start with the numbers. Studies show that divorced men experience one of the steepest drops in perceived social rank of any life event. That drop activates the same regions of the brain responsible for physical pain. Yes, the same neurons that respond when you break a bone or burn your hand. The reason is biological. For millions of years, a man's ability to provide defined his value in the tribe. Losing that role triggers the primal circuitry of defeat. Suddenly, every unpaid bill or child support reminder feels like an attack on your very existence. One man described it to me like this: "It's not the money. It's waking up every morning feeling like I've failed at the one thing I was supposed to do: protect." That's the real wound. Shame disguised as financial stress, and shame, if left unchecked, eats through confidence faster than debt ever could. So what's the counterattack? It's agency, reclaiming even one corner of control. Start small. List 3 things you still have power over: a skill, a network, a resource. Maybe you can fix cars, design websites, coach a sport, or write copy. Pick one and make it produce value within a week. Trade it for cash, barter, or goodwill. That single action, turning ability into motion, quietly rewires the brain's insula, the region that monitors self-worth. You're proving to yourself that you can still create, still contribute, still matter. Every micro-win rebuilds the psychological infrastructure of dignity. But here's something fascinating. Even when men start regaining stability, most of them don't rush to therapy. Instead, they look for answers in the shadows. They stay up until 2 a.m. scrolling through Reddit threads, listening to podcasts at 1.5 speed, or watching videos like this one. They're searching, quietly, anonymously. And that's not weakness. It's the first step of courage. It's how modern men whisper for help in a world that punishes them for shouting. Data backs this up. Men are more likely than women to seek emotional support online, usually late at night, when the house is silent and no one's watching. But if you're one of those men, here's the next evolution. Turn the anonymous chat into a real conversation. Message one person from that group and suggest a call, a 30-minute talk, camera on, no agenda. It'll feel awkward at first, but that's how you begin bridging from virtual understanding to human connection. Studies show that men who make this leap who transition from anonymous help to real-time dialogue double their likelihood of pursuing genuine healing, whether through therapy, friendship, or mentorship. Because connection heals what isolation magnifies, and the moment you experience non-judgmental understanding from another man, something deep shifts. You realize you're not broken, you're simply human. Now here's the twist, the part no one expects. Roughly half of all men eventually experience what psychologists call post-traumatic growth after divorce. That means the pain doesn't just fade, it forges strength. They report deeper friendships, sharper boundaries, higher emotional intelligence, and a renewed sense of purpose. The trauma becomes the training ground. The single biggest predictor of this transformation isn't luck, it's narrative. The story you tell yourself about what happened determines whether you crumble or evolve. Most men default to the victim story. She left, I failed, my life's over. But change the frame to, it ended, and that ending reshaped me into something stronger. The facts don't change, but the meaning does. And meaning is what rewires your brain toward growth. Think about it like blacksmithing. The metal doesn't strengthen by avoiding fire, it strengthens by surviving it. Divorce is that fire. The heat reveals what's solid and burns off what's weak. The man who accepts the truth stops waiting to be saved and starts forging himself. So here's your assignment. Simple, actionable, and immediate. Pick one truth from everything you've heard today and act on it before you go to bed tonight. Send that text, schedule that meetup, dust off that old hobby, write that message. You don't need to rebuild your life in a week. You just need to move an inch forward today, because an inch in the right direction is the start of a mile you'll thank yourself for later. As the saying goes, small hinges swing big doors. Each step, no matter how minor, chips away at the wall you didn't build overnight. The depression, the loneliness, the loss of identity, they aren't life sentences. They're transitions, temporary, not terminal. When you shift from enduring to evolving, the entire story changes. You're not broken, you're being rebuilt, not as the man you were, but as the man you were meant to become. And when that realization hits, you'll understand why the pain had to come first.